Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking. Today we finally get the remaining parts, what we were missing these cables. Actually not this cable, I already had it. But we were missing one of the motor cables, which is right here. And then we were missing all the sensor cables and the sensors. So that's the final piece to this puzzle, is to get those installed. So today we're going to finish installing all the sensors, and then we're going to fire up this machine, get it hooked to the computer, and start going through that process. And yeah, let me show you how I did it. The first thing I did was lay out a bunch of tape, and I'm going to mark all these cables, because when I feed them through the machine to the plug and play system, I want to make sure that I know what cable is what. So I mark all these Z, Y, X, Y1, Y2, and at the same time I'm looking at the instructions from the AVID CNC people of how to install the sensors. And yeah, marking them. I double check everything. There is pluses and minuses, so you want to make sure you have all those in the right spot. I then take out the sensors, and it says to pre-cable these sensors on the straight ones. And yeah, so I get those labeled, get them screwed on there. I did have one bad cable on the Z-axis. I managed to get it to work, but I'm going to have to call them and see if I can get a replacement cable. One of the 90-degree sensor cables, the end was detached, but I attached it, but I'm definitely going to get a new one. I then Loctite these in their locations. Sorry about the focusing right there. These are the Y axis, and this one feeds through I have to feed that through the gantry. That's the Y1 sensor. Once I get that one on, then I install the Y2 sensor. And the Y2 has a plus and minus. So it has one on the front of the machine and then one on the back. And I Loctite these screws on there. The next one I install is the X-axis, and this one was kind of strange. It was oh no, this is the Z-axis up on the top of the motor, and that's actually the cable that ended up a bad cable. I did get it to work, but yeah, like I said, I'm going to see if I can get it replaced. So that's the Z-axis. And it only has one. You would think it would have one going down, but it's just on the up, it seems like. And I run that cable up through the cable track. Check the measurements. One thing I'd recommend when doing cabling is stretch your cords out first. The first couple that I ran through the track, I didn't do that, and it makes it a lot harder if they have these coils in them. So if you uncoil them, kind of get them straight first, then it goes a lot easier. And this one needed to go through both the top, bottom. It needed to go through all three cable tracks. Next up was the X-axis, and basically this one, it needed to go into that hole just to the top of that top of that sensor. So I needed to just touch the top of that. You can see here I untangled that cable. It made it a lot easier. This was another 90-degree sensor cable, and I didn't seem to have any trouble with that one. Feed it through the cable track. I've heard a lot of people say that the wiring was, it was a lot of work, but to me the wiring, if you kept it all, kept track of it, and it seemed pretty easy to me. Actually, it went really well. My only disappointment in this whole process was I paid $500 extra for expedited delivery of the whole machine, and it came 20. It was supposed to come on the 16th of September, and I got the final parts on October 11th. So what is that? About a month later, almost. But I am happy with all the assembly. I couldn't have, if I bought a machine that was welded, I wouldn't have been able to get it in this room. And this room is a perfect little spot down in my basement to run this machine. And I was surprised. I was worried that the 8 horsepower spindle would be loud, but it was not. It was not loud. And yeah. Actually, I'll see if I can show you how loud it is. So this was basically the third day of assembly on this machine, even though it took a month to get all the parts. This is my third day, I believe. So this will be part 3. And after I get all the sensors hooked up, I then do the wire management. And basically I take each one individually and I zip tie them together so that I can easily get to them and not be all jumbled up. So I separate them, I install them, and I zip tie them into the center. It has a little center hook that you can put your cables on. And I basically do each one like that, making sure to hook them up. They're all labeled, so it made it look real easy. And yeah, pretty simple. Next up was the computer cable. And then I proceeded to zip tie and clean up all the wires. I wanted it to be nice and tidy. I then needed to check the computer, and there was 3 wire mounting places that needed to be installed. One of them was right here on the bottom of the gantry, the riser, and then one on each side of the gantry. Getting the CNC up and running just in time. It actually snowed today, believe it or not. It was October 11th. I was kind of surprised that it snowed, but it actually, the temperature dropped to about 50 degrees. So I definitely will be working inside from here on out for a little while. And that was one of the main reasons I bought the CNC, was it would give me something to learn, and it'd be a fun thing to do. Once I get these little wire mounts put in their places, I zip tie those wires down, clean up the cables, get them as tidy as possible. And then it was getting close to being ready to turn on this machine. This was the last wire tie on the Y1 side. Once I get Mach 4 to talk to the machine, I could then jog the machine. And that was pretty exciting to see it move at the first time. I did have to do a little downloading and work on the computer, but here you can see I was able to get it moving. I then proceeded to I needed to square the machine, so I downloaded a program from AVID. Basically, it's a program that drills 4 holes. I'm putting in a 1/4 inch up end-mill bit, upcut end-mill. And I've got the dust collection hooked up, and now I'm going to run this program. I leave the dust shoe off on this particular drilling just so I could see watch what's happening. First I needed to home the machine. So, and once I get the homing done, I then use the touch plate on the corner of my material that I wanted to cut these 4 holes and check for square. Once that was done, I could just run the program. Once I checked for square, and it was then time to run a bigger bit, a 1/2 inch bit, and basically for the tramming, which it's basically going to surface this material between all 4 of these holes I just drilled, and it's going to tell me if the router is, if I need to shim it or anything. And it actually turned out to be really smooth, and I was happy with it, so I left it. I didn't need to do any adjusting. So I got the squaring done. So day 3 I finished assembly. I got the squaring done, and then I also did the tramming. Yeah. And then I got a wild hair, and I decided, well, I'm going to make a sign. Okay, now that we've tried a few files and we cut a few things, we're going to draw a sign, and we're going to do 24 inches wide on the X and 27 inches tall, 3/4 of an inch thick. We'll go from the 0 left-hand corner, standard, and hit OK. Next up, we need to put some text in here. So I'm going to have 2 types of text. I'm going to have AVID CNC in bold, hit OK. We'll move that up to the center. And we'll make it a little bigger. Position it left to right. There we go. And that looks good. Okay. Next up, we're going to click out of that. We're going to put some more text in here. And the next thing we're going to put is a list of the cycle start checklist. So the first thing we need to do is type cycle start checklist. And then the first thing on the list is locate the emergency stop. I'm just going to write emergency stop. Next up is number 2, home your machine. Number 3, material dimensions. Number 4, preview toolpath. Number 5, secure work holding. Number 6, check router bit. Number 7, verify work coordinate. 8, review Mach 4. Review G-code. Number 9, test the spindle. Number 10, reinstall dust shoe. Okay, we're going to make that bold and hit close. Now we'll move it up into position. Scale it down a little bit. Needs to scale down a little more to get it in there. Still too big. 10. Fix that. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's click out of there. Let's close that. Let's go over to toolpaths. We're going to highlight our tools. We don't need a clearance tool because we're just going to use a VBit 1502 that I already have loaded up, ready to go. And start depth 0, calculate. Preview toolpath. And there it is. So that's going to be our sign that we're going to make to keep us on, make sure that we look at it and check the list every day. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to save this toolpath, highlight the toolpath, and that all looks good. Machine Pro, that looks good. Save toolpath. We're going to save it to this USB drive, which is already highlighted. We'll get rid of this one that didn't work. I don't know why it didn't work. Get rid of that one, and now we're going to save. So if we go in there, I should have renamed that. Actually, yeah, let's rename that. Ecarve checklist. Save it again. Get rid of this one. Save. And there it is. And let's eject it and go over to the machine and see if we can't cut it out. After installing a VBit, I home the machine and then I reset the coordinates with the touch plate. And I put the vacuum machine, here I am homing it. And now I'm going to use the touch plate and get the coordinates right. It does so it goes down and it hits it, and then you basically turn the bit to do the Y. Here it goes to the Y, and then turn it again and go to the X. And then next you can start the program. And I don't like dust, so I'm going to leave the dust shoe on. And here it goes. And this is my first sign using a VBit. And here's the sign all done, and I basically routed the edges of it, and I ended up cleaning it all off, and I used some red paint. Now I would not suggest doing it this way, but since this was my first sign, I thought I'll paint the letters, get it nice and painted from all angles, and then my idea was just to sand off the top layer of the red. But I don't think I'll do that next time, because I think what I'll do is I'll use some kind of tape or shield on top of it before I cut it, and then I could just spray the letters and peel the tape off. But this way did work, and and for my first sign, and it's just going up in the next to my computer, so it reminds me of the checklist what to do. For my first sign, I was happy with it. And right here, I'm using a rigid sander with dust collection, and there's no dust coming out of there. It works really well. Once I get most of the red sanded off really well, I then take a vacuum and I vacuum out the insides of the letters, and then I get some clear and spray it with clear. And that's my first sign. Anyway, thank you very much for watching part 3 of the AVID install, and I hope you liked the video, and please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Later.